I'll talk about beginner bookbinding mistakes and how to avoid them. I wish I knew about these topics when I started bookbinding. I made all these mistakes myself and not only once. That's why I want to walk you through them so you'll be able to avoid them. Usually it's only a matter of small changes and the problem can be fixed. Hi, I'm Joanna and welcome back to my missredfox paper art channel. If you like bookbinding or paper crafts in general, feel free to like and subscribe. This channel is all about these topics. Thank you so much. Okay, so here are the mistakes you could make as a beginner bookbinder. Number 1, paper grain. Most beginners are not aware of the paper grain. I myself wasn't at first, and then I was aware of this matter, but didn't pay attention to it. You can learn a lot about paper grain in my comprehensive video about this topic, which I'll link in the description, so I'll only say the basics here. Paper grain means the direction of the fibers in paper or bookbinding board. This, by the way, is a test that you could make to find out the paper grain direction. By understanding the paper grain and paying attention to it, your covers won't warp. You can see here there is a gap between the covers and the paper. The covers are warped and this is not okay. You need to have the same grain direction for the cover paper, the cover board, the end paper, and preferably also the pages. Also, folding signatures, so the pages, with the grain direction reduces the strain on the paper and your book will open easier and the pages won't bend. Number 2, warping covers. Board and paper warp when they get moisture, so glue. When you glue paper on only one side of the cover board, the board warps if you don't work fast enough and glue an end paper on the inside of the cover, or when you only cover one side of the board. If you use an end paper too and pay attention to the grain, the board stays flat. I'll demonstrate. You can see that the board already warps. And now I will glue paper on one side. And leave it like this. The second one. And here I will glue paper on the other side as well. So think of it like an end paper on the inside of the book cover. You can see that the board that has paper only on one side is still warped and will probably stay like this if I don't put it in a book press. But the board that has paper on both sides is straighter, so this is what you want to have. You want to have paper on both sides of the board with ideally the same grain direction as the board, so the covers don't warp. Moreover, both papers should preferably have the same or similar weight, and you should use the same glue and the same amount of glue on both sides. The problem is, when glue dries, the paper pulls the fibers of the board more in one direction than in the other, and you'll have a warped cover if you don't use the same paper weight or the same glue or no paper on the back side as well. Another method to avoid warped covers, especially when your cover and end paper don't have the same weight, is to always press the finished book or the covers while drying. Also, you should know that how fast glue dries depends on the climate where you live in. So try, for example, not to use too much glue if you live in a moist climate. Otherwise, your book will take longer to dry. A little pro tip: don't leave empty spots, so without glue, when spreading the glue. Spread the glue evenly so you don't have air bubbles. These form between paper and board when you have spots without glue. I'll show you. So there's no glue here. And here is an air bubble because there's no glue underneath. And you don't want to have this. So spread your glue evenly. Number 3, wrinkled or warped paper because of moist covers. You've probably noticed that when you make the covers and bind the book directly, your pages might wrinkle, like here. Or like here. This is because the paper of the pages absorbs the moisture in the covers. So either let your covers dry properly overnight or for 1 or 2 days in the book press or underneath bricks or heavy books before you bind the book. This is easier for open spine bindings like the Coptic or the Japanese one, this one, where you can finish the covers before binding, or put a barrier like a plastic sheet between cover and pages on both sides if the covers are still fresh, so moist, and then put the whole book into a press. This is especially important for closed spine bindings. You could also use a folded sheet of parchment paper, but in my experience, better a piece of plastic. I cut mine from a document folder like this one. And if you don't have parchment paper or a plastic sheet, you could also use a thicker sheet of paper between covers and pages that would absorb the moisture and wrinkle instead of your pages. You could also try to iron on low the area that is wrinkled and put it back into the press, because ironing relaxes the fibers. Give it a try if your book is already made and your pages are wrinkled like this one. Number 4, trimming corners of the cover paper or book cloth. If this is my book board and this is my cover paper and I want to wrap it, I need to cut the corners so I don't have too much material on the corner. And for that, I take this one and cut in a 45-degree angle. If I cut too close to the corner, I'll demonstrate. And I fold the paper over the corner of my board. You can see there's not much material here and my corner is not covered. So this is not good. Try again. If I cut too far away from the corner, or not at all, and then fold, I have too much material here. This is not good. It will be too bulky. So the solution for both these problems is to try to cut in a 45-degree angle for best results and the correct distance from the corner. This would be about 3 millimeters if you use a 2 millimeter board. Otherwise, the rule of thumb is to multiply your board thickness by 1.5 and thus get the measurement for the gap that you need to leave between the corner of your board and where you cut the 45-degree angle. So this is a 2 millimeter board. And if I cut my corner at 3 millimeter distance from my board, then I have the perfect amount of paper to be able to cover my corner and not to have a too bulky material at the corner. Number 5, the hinges. If you use paper for the hinges too, the book, or the box by the way, if I have a box with a lid, won't last so long, especially when you open them often. So use book cloth for every hinge you construct. If you don't have book cloth, you can easily make some. Watch for this, my video about how to prepare fabric for bookbinding. I'll link it in the description below. Number 6, thread. Wax thread, linen or cotton, is very strong and has less friction on paper and covers while sewing because it glides better. Not waxing the thread is not such a big mistake, but a wax thread makes your work so much better and the book lasts longer. To wax, just run the thread 2 or 3 times through beeswax. This is especially important with cotton thread, which is otherwise too fluffy over time. Moreover, if your thread is too thick, your spine will be too bulky when using signatures. You could separate a strand of thread into thinner threads, like here. So if you have a 6-ply thread, you can split it into 2 3-ply threads and have a thinner yarn. Number 7, pulling the thread into the wrong direction and wrong thread tension. A common mistake, and one that I made often enough when starting bookbinding, was to not get the thread tension right when sewing and pulling into the wrong direction. When you use signatures like this one for your book and pull into the wrong direction when sewing, your signature paper, so the holes in them, could rip. I'll demonstrate. So this is my sewing direction, and I should pull in this direction, so in the direction of the sewing. If I pull in this direction, the holes in the paper could rip. Or if I pull like this, or if I pull like this, always in the direction of sewing. So if you pull in the right direction, which is parallel to the spine and in the direction you're sewing, you won't have the problem that your pages could rip. If you pull too tight, you'll have marks on your covers, like here. You see? And if you pull too loose, so your tension is too loose, your book will be wobbly, like here. Number 8, glue brush. Leaving your glue brush with glue on it, like here, it's not okay. If you leave it like this too long, it's good for a trash can. You should either rinse it directly with water after gluing, shake off the excess water and let it dry, or put it in a jar with water, or put it in a plastic bag, which is secure tight, if you plan to use it again later that day. Number 9, tools. Don't think that expensive tools are required to start bookbinding. Some stuff is better bought in a good quality, yes, but you can start practicing with cheaper tools and materials or stuff that you might even already have at home, like cereal boxes instead of bookboard, a candle instead of beeswax, a cutter blade and sandpaper instead of the guillotine, which I still don't have, by the way. I always cut by hand or go to the print shop. Last but not least, number 10, nail polish. This one will probably put question marks on your faces. Don't use red, pink or whatever color nail polish when bookbinding. And I'm talking here about the real old-fashioned nail polish and not of the gel or acrylic ones. This one may sound strange and you may think it has nothing to do with bookbinding, but it happened to me from time to time and I wanted to address this one as well. The thing is, nail polish or nails with nail polish on them can leave marks on the paper, and you don't want that, and you won't be able to clean those. Okay, these are the most usual mistakes I can think of when bookbinding and how to avoid them. In the next video, I'll show you how to trim your cover paper or book close corners and how to build yourself a little tool, so a jig, to have properly trimmed corners every time. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you liked this video, and if so, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back with more videos on bookbinding and paper crafting soon. If you have any questions, just write them down in the comments and I'll answer them as fast as I can. Thank you so much.